This is the Wait For It podcast.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Wait For It podcast. I'm your co-host, Phil Barrera, aka Phil the Filipino.
And I'm your other co-host, Mr. Eric Almighty. And for this edition of Creator Spotlight, we got a referral of sorts by a previous guest, which doesn't typically happen, which means we've got to hype this one up, because it might be a first, Phil. This is going to be a guest that we're bringing in who is here to push boundaries and create the next era of comics, the Prince of Comics, some would say. And Phil, really excited to get into this with our guest who we're meeting tonight for the first time.
Yeah, like you said, we connected with our guest through a previous guest and also Patreon Weight Watcher of the show, the author of the Vitellarium series, Nicholas Casbaro. We love that guy, so we were like, hey, you know what? If he's good in Nicholas's book, got to be good in ours as well. It's funny, Eric, as we've gone through this journey and through this series and some bonus episodes, while you and I aren't necessarily the biggest fans when it comes to seeking out comics, we have always been able to find people that are very passionate about that particular subject, and also, again, as you mentioned, like up and coming, and also just looking to break into this comic world with new and original ideas, and you know, that's what we're going to be doing here today. So I want to welcome in our guest for this month for Creator Spotlight, Ray Reynet. Ray, thank you so much. It's so nice to meet you. Thank you for being here. And how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great, guys. It's an absolute honor to be on the show. It really means the world to me to be able to be on a platform as nice as you guys, you know, and it's really exciting to talk to like-minded people, you know. I think that comics are underrated in the whole world, and we need to really push that around everyone's screens. So, yeah, man. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, you know, I mean, even though, again, Eric, we don't dive into a ton of comics, I think one thing that is still very refreshing is when you do go to a collective con, a mega con, something like that. Hey, those short boxes are well represented, right? We see those everywhere, plenty of vendors and plenty of people lining up to get those limited edition comics, get stuff signed, all of that. So while it may not be front and center like some things that we go see at a convention, like anime voice actors or celebrity guests, things like that, the hobby is alive and well. So that is very, very good. And we get to talk to people like you, Ray, who let us know what is going on in that world, and of course, what is going on with you. So please, we would love to, please introduce yourself to our audience. Let everybody know what you do. And of course, also tell us more about Farlook Studios and what's going on over there.
So, like you guys said, the self-appointed Prince of Comics, because I'll never be able to replace Jack King Kirby, you know. I think that the old school stuff is amazing and it's timeless. And even though it's not really super represented in, you know, comic shops and stuff, I think that the movies have really dominated and cast a shadow, but again, I'm just trying to make something brand new, go up against Marvel and DC single-handedly, and just really just push the medium forward and see what else it could bring other than just comics. And so I decided to create my own little company named Farlook Studios, where I'm turning the books that I produce, I'm self-publishing them, and I'm actually adapting them into animation and video games and stuff with my friends and everything, and so far, I can't complain. It's always fun to just see what else I can do and just take the risk. Yeah.
Yeah, we love that. We have spoken to a lot of people who are passionate about their craft and, you know, go out on the limb and try and make something new. I mean, that's what this series is all about, right, Eric, is finding individuals that are chasing their dreams and are creative in their own specific, you know, sect of this fandom, this nerddom that we all share. And, you know, I think it's always really cool to find someone like yourself, Ray, who is trying to, you know, break the mold a little bit. I mean, like you said, the comic book film is certainly casting a big shadow, and I think people place comic books in that very specific box. And one thing we've learned, Eric, is like, man, that box is huge. There is so much going on outside of your Marvels, your DCs, and, you know, just your typical, you know, surface level comic stuff.
100%. And I think it's topical. I mean, you know, we'll probably be talking about gaming and a lot of other stuff within the bubble of pop culture, which is insanely huge. But when we talk about something topical in gaming, like, I just bought a game with a 1930s rubber hose style art of like your classic Mickey Mouse and Mouse PI for Hire. Like, people are talking about that game. People are loving it. So, I mean, there's just so much room for all these different styles and genres. And we're going to talk about that here on this episode. But I'll kind of kick it off with our first official question. Ray. Again, a couple for you before we dive into those pop culture moments. For your previous interviews, doing a little bit of research, you've mentioned that in a lot of areas of what you do, both from the artist and the business side, you've been largely self-taught, which is amazing. I'm very curious, with that in mind, what are some of the most pivotal moments or breakthroughs that helped you transition from experimenting as a kid, again, always having that pencil in your hand since you were a little kid, to the quality of work that you're putting out now? Like, kind of explain a little bit of that journey, and again, some of those big breakthrough moments that have really brought you to where you are today.
Man, you guys really did your research, huh? So yeah, man, like you said, I've been drawing since I was a little kid, and I always wanted to get into animation and to, making movies and stuff when I was younger. And I never really found an avenue here in the Miami scene. Everything's always in California and all the big studios. And I really wanted to pursue that passion anyways. So I was literally learning at my art university for a couple semesters right before it closed down. So everything shut down and closed its doors right before I was even able to really launch anything. And just going to class and just going to my studio classes and presenting my work and putting myself out there kind of taught me how important that is overall. And having to have like some sort of presence whenever I speak and whenever I'm showing off the work. It's kind of interesting to think about how everything always kind of starts from a downhill battle, right? I mean, a downhill spiral, and it's an uphill battle right afterwards. So I decided if I was gonna, keep making things, might as well pursue it anyways, whether there's a class, whether if it's for a grade or not, might as well do it for myself. And I decided, I've had this idea since I was a little kid to make this story, to make this world, and I decided why not pursue it anyways? Why not produce it? Like you said, self-taught in every aspect. I really just I read a lot of biography books about like Walt Disney and all of the people like Steve Jobs or even Charlie Chaplin, just to like see where their headspace was at, right? Because they're all these crazy success stories of how they had nothing to then a little bit, and then from that small thing that they planted, it grew into something massive. So it's just really about taking the initiative, going to the comic shops myself, driving however far, 2 hours sometimes to go to conventions in different parts of Florida. And sometimes those conventions are a dud. Maybe there's not a whole lot of audience and stuff, but it's learning to sell on the fly and captivate people as best I can and just meeting the right people. It's just about being as flexible as possible. It's just about wanting to do something, to leave some sort of impact, and to really just go for it, whether you win or fail. I see it all as like a lesson, right? It's all character builders at the end of the day. Like, it's not going to be super easy. If it was easy, it wouldn't be worth achieving. It wouldn't be amazing to see it, right? It would be common. But yeah, man, thank you.
You know what's funny? Like, again, if it was so easy, everybody would be doing it. That's the thing, right? Like, it's definitely something of a journey that not Phil. We talk about this all the time with the voice actors, but I'm starting to realize with artists and really any type of creative that we bring on, like everybody's journey has elements of the same type of like foundations, but a lot of them are just so different. I know we say that a lot on this episode as we hear new stories, but right, to hear you take something like Junket Hidden Worlds, something that you started in middle school and grew into such a local hit. Now it's in comic shops, being featured at conventions, like just really great work that you're doing now. But there's just so much history behind, what you've done, which is just so interesting to hear. And having you on for our audience to get to hear that, I know, Phil, I am definitely appreciative that we had this connection here.
Yeah, Ray, what's that like? I think Eric and we have an idea of, we put an episode out into the world and we, I do a voice acting project and we put it out into the world and then we see it and it's there for everybody to experience and to take in. So like, what is that like? Again, like Eric mentioned, it's a project that you've worked on since middle school. What is it like for people to see people getting their hands on it and then going to a convention and getting to talk to people about it and they take it home? What's that feeling? Describe that feeling for us.
Oh, dude, it's the craziest feeling. Like being able to have like someone a recurring customer, basically someone who sees me at another convention and decides to, let's say like, hey, you know what? I followed him online. Let's go to the other one. And then it's just so weird to be like, I guess, remembered in that sense, even if it's a small impact, right? And it's kind of crazy to see people go into the store and then seeing the book I made and be like, yo, I found it. It's no way. It's crazy. I just talked to this guy online and this and that. And I just found him on the store. And then these people like send me the photos of it. It's such a strange kind of feeling to just make something and just let it off into the world. It's almost like, I don't know, it's like my dog ran away or something. Like it's just kind of, it's a great feeling though, because it's showing that even though, because not everything is perfect. I'm sure you guys know, man. As soon as you're putting your heart and soul and your blood, sweat, and tears into some project, and it just becomes something that people could either accept or reject, whatever it may be, it becomes very difficult to like just let that thing just exist. And you kind of have to be open and vulnerable to it, because at the end of the day, not everyone's gonna like what we make, not everyone's gonna appreciate what we do, but there's always that audience. There's always someone for something, always, right? There's always someone for everything. And I think it's just really wholesome to see like younger kids that meet me at conventions, whether they're like 4 or 5 years old, they come running like, "Oh, you didn't sell them? Oh, thank God. Let me get the crazy looking one." And I'm like surprised these little kids, they want like the Halloween covers and like all the creepy ones and stuff. And it's just super fascinating to see how, like, even if it's just a small hint, right, of just inspiration or motivation that I give them. Sometimes parents, they come up to my table and be like, "Look, he could do what he's doing. Don't you draw at home? Look, he's doing it too. You could do that." And it's very wholesome. And it's because being raised by my family, I've always been taught that I think anyone could do anything they really set their mind to, right? So it's just a beautiful experience to see that out in the wild. It's also weird, right? It's like sometimes some people recognize me and I don't know, like, oh man, where did I know you from another convention or, whatever. But it's a great feeling, man. Can't complain.
Yeah, I mean, you'd be surprised. There is a uh, Eric's son always navigates to the creepiest stuff possible. So that kids these days are eating that up. So that doesn't really surprise me too much. Yeah, that's great. I love that. My actual next question, our next question here is, kind of looking back at your earlier work compared to your most recent projects. What do you think has changed the most in your creative process, your artistic voice, and also how have you, we talked about conventions, how has your approach to pitching yourself changed from that first one to even the most recent convention? How has your whole process evolved over time?
Right, that's a great question, man. So it's literally, I was pitching it to my students, like my classmates in my university at first, presenting it as like a project, whatever. At first, it felt like an assignment. Then I realized, like, man, I really like this. As soon as I showed everyone the product, right, the finished book, they all wanted a copy and they were like, "Oh, but can we buy one? And can you sign it?" And I was like, "Sure. I mean, I guess, you know." And it from that really just inspired me to want to keep going and seeing what other places, trying conventions. And yeah, the original stuff I did back in the day was kind of just testing the waters. Like my first comic was a black and white kind of like poem that I had written and I adapted it. It's called The Last Crusader. And it was really just this undead crusader coming back to life at the end of time to fight like a demon, right? It's like an old folklore kind of thing. People seem to really resonate with it, but I was really just playing with like the limitations that I had. So I was only using, just black and white and just one color, right? Just using red. And now I'm able to use every color, especially because Junket is such a vibrant series. I always go and allude to all of the old school stuff, like the Disney movies and like the Fleischer cartoons. I want it to feel like pop art, like the Jack Kirby kind of Thor artwork. And I think it's interesting to see how as a writer and as a creator, I start looking for ways to improve, not just like to test the waters and experiment with superficial things like colors and stuff, but I started just really diving deep into like the bibliographies of authors that I love, old school like epics, stuff like the Dante's Inferno, stuff like Ovid's Metamorphosis and Homer's epics. It kind of like helped me reach a better understanding of how these things, they're not just books at the end of the day. They're not just stories. They're something that kind of could be potentially culturally transcendent in some way, right? Some sort of an impact. I never would have imagined some little character that someone drew could become something like what Spider-Man is today. It's an icon. It's this symbol of motivation, of like, that we can do things with the strength we're given, you know. And I've just been thinking about how, even though I know it's just a small circle or a small square, my little quadrant over here in South Florida, I think it's interesting to see how it's already started to kind of branch out and become something more. So I start focusing, or I guess obsessing really. All my friends are tired of it, the way I ramble on. But I'm just super focused and obsessed with making a complete product. I've been studying the works of like Steve Jobs and the way he talks about his projects, and it's just so how robust something could be, how well encompassing a single thing could be. And been seeing how Walt Disney, he used the term plussing, the way he would keep adding to something, even though he was running out of money and have to scrounge for scraps and whatever, sleeping on the floor or whatever it may be. I was fascinated to see how the product came first and the complete wholesomeness of it had to be like a complete package. So now I'm not making like 22 pagers, 10 pagers anymore. I'm not just making, over the counter comics, I guess. I'm trying to make like an actual graphic novel. I want it to sell it as a full product. So then the adaptation from just a comic to a movie is already storyboarded out. So I'm thinking in terms of like scenes, I'm thinking in terms of mood, feeling, how is this going to impact an audience? So yeah, man. I know that was a long-winded response, but
No, that's great. I mean, again, we learn so much during this journey. Again, like you said, Eric, the bones of a lot of the creators' journeys are very, very similar. So it's always really great to see kind of how people have evolved over time and adjusted their pitch and their process and all of that. So it's always really great, and I'm sure again we'll offer somebody something of value who is maybe earlier in their creation journey that's trying to take a similar path that you have, Ray. So all of that is great. And Eric, again, one of the reasons that this series has become so valuable, not only for us, but hopefully for the listeners too.
Yeah, no, it definitely provides a lot of value in the sense that like we learn about a lot of really deep information in the creative process that I think people are still trying to find for themselves, right? Like that's something that I think is important. Things from motivations to compromises. Those things are real in every artist or any type of creative's work. And that kind of like leans a little bit into my next question. You did kind of talk about some of your process, even to the point of storyboarding to bring it from like graphic novel to movie. And it seems like your work spans multiple genres, which is really, really great, but also potentially multiple formats. Like not only are you kind of storyboarding for movies over here, there's either, from what I understand, anticipation or maybe early development into animation, gaming, some properties like that. So like with all of this that you're juggling, how do you approach developing a cohesive brand identity while still allowing yourself the creative freedom and liberty to explore these different styles and these different kind of stories?
yeah, man. So it's really just focusing on what is it that I want to leave behind, right? And it's seeing it from that perspective, that angle of some sort of legacy. Even though I'm only 24, I want to make something that already transcends me, right? I want to make something that, even if my name is forgotten, if only that book remains, I want that thing to have a little piece of my soul in it. But I think that really what it is trying to branch out into different genres, because what else is there? Why not try to experiment and take a risk, a leap of faith? I'm currently like teaching myself how to animate. I've always practiced and dabbled in it when I was younger, but just I have a like a 9 to 5 job, and I wake up super early in the morning to just squeeze in, just make a bit of time to like draw some of the issues or the comic strips, and then from there just trying to see how I could learn the programs and teach myself the the rules of animation and whatnot. But I think that if an idea has a lot of passion in it, and if an idea really is like as concentrated and as focused as it needs to be, then from there it could really branch out into anything. How I juggle it, I don't know how well I juggle it, to be fully honest, but I think I'm trying to keep it kind of balanced. Right now the graphic novel I'm working on is really focused in on almost making a new modern fairy tale, right? And it's literally just adapting the characters that are like side characters within the Junket universe, but they're they're just kind of expanding. It's like if the camera was to stay rolling on them, where would they go? What adventures would they go to? And I want to jump through as many genres as possible because that is what's the most exciting to me. I'm making these things, and I always visualize, man, what would a 4-year-old Ray really, really mess with right now? What would he love about this? And it's just like, yeah, what would a kid version of myself appreciate? And then it's just, all right, do that. Make this as cool as possible, but then make this scene as funny as possible, or as like action packed and whatever it may be. And obviously, like I said, the kids really gravitate towards creepy stuff. So there's a little bit of like horror elements. There's the fantasy. There's the kid friendly stuff. So it's just trying to see how I can make it as a well-rounded product as humanly possible. And it's just making the time for it. There is no such thing as work-life balance is a myth, first and foremost. So it's really just seeing how I can just kind of keep going every single day, even if it's just one little scribble or one typed word, whatever it may be, is just always pushing that needle forward a little bit more. Yeah.
Yeah, and when you're doing things that you love, it's a little bit easier. But I mean, Phil, we were doing 2 episodes a week for like the first couple of years of this podcast, and I think we took the "we can sleep when we're dead" approach. Probably took some years off of our life for sure. So would not recommend. But when you're doing what you love, like, it's really easy to get into that cycle. And Phil, speaking of things that we love, I know we're really excited to get into the back half of this conversation, just kind of talking about all things pop culture and just looking at Ray's work and a couple of things that you might be interested in. Phil, I think we're going to have a really robust conversation, a very wide variety, which is kind of fitting here.
Yeah, Ray, we would love to know kind of what some of those pop culture influences are. Of course, you've talked about studying the works of Walt Disney. So, I would love to start there. We're all Florida kids here. So I don't know if you are born and raised. Eric and I are kind of transplants, but we've been here the majority of our life as well. So I guess the first thing I want to throw out to you, I'll throw you a Florida man question, is do you have a preference when it comes to a theme park? Are you a Universal guy? Are you a Disney guy? Or a little bit of both? What's your preference if you're a theme park guy at all?
Yeah, man. I mean, I grew up right here in Miami my whole life. So it was just always going to trips to visit my uncle and stuff in Orlando. And from there, we'd always go to the parks. And it just, I fell in love with it because they would literally put the old school VHSs of like the Bambi movies or Peter Pan. And to see the characters in person and see the castle and stuff, that was like a transcendent experience. It was almost like going to a different world. And then now, since I'm older, I get to appreciate the making of how they did that and how, no one believed in him when he was making it and all that stuff. And it's just fascinating how his just unrelenting focus and determination, and, constant pleading and asking the banks for help, he was able to finally make his dream of a theme park come true. I don't think there would be a theme park without Disney, and I think that's definitely one of my biggest influences ever. Other than that, yeah, I mean, gaming is a huge, huge influence in my life. I don't have the humble honor of being a programmer myself, but my buddy is actually an engineer, programmer, and he's helping me adapt Junket into a little like 8-bit kind of retro video game, kind of like the old school Zelda stuff. So I love that kind of stuff. Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask. Like all of the, Nintendo 64 era stuff, God of War, all these cool story-driven adventure, stories are really just amazing. And now that we're finally seeing some of this stuff come into movies, it's as if the seed has always been planted there from the beginning. So it's just fascinating to see how all of these things can kind of connect into one another. But yeah, man, Disney World all the way. That's just kind of how, I was raised, but I think Universal is great too. Yeah, man.
Have you gotten to do that? Isn't there I looked it up here, the Art of Animation Resort there at Disney. Have you gotten to go to that?
No, man, no. My biggest dream would literally be to visit like the Disneyland in California, the original one, just to witness Walt Disney's office. I feel like I'm stepping into the White House and the president's office or something, to me. They used to spray paint the grass green to make it more vibrant back then. They cut down orange trees and put it up in the parks and stuff. It's just to read about something and to love the ideas and be inspired by them, to then go to the place would be insane. And when I was growing up, I didn't even know that CalArts was the school literally created from Walt and Roy Disney. I didn't know that, and I always wanted to study there. The people who made Regular Show, Gravity Falls, everyone from Pixar, they all studied there, and I was like, that's where I want to go. Sadly, I didn't have the funding and stuff, and I was like, you know what, I'll teach myself from the same books that they read as well. Why not? And just kind of like seeing what they did in their movies and just studying their stuff as well. And yeah, bro, I think it would be a dream come true to visit CalArts or even just see the original Disneyland. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, Disneyland is something that still eludes us, Eric. Maybe with our with my sister and brother-in-law heading back to California. I don't even know if I've told you that, actually. I don't think I've told you that. Yeah, maybe we'll get to go in the next few years. But yeah, I mean, you'll make a lot of people happy, Ray, choosing the Disney route. I mean, we love the Universal parks. Eric, you've gotten to go to Epic Universe. I hope to go very, very soon as well. But it's just really cool to see, and especially I'm sure with your background, when it comes to all of this animation stuff that we're such big fans of. You brought up the VHS tapes. There's just a certain kind of like magical grittiness to watching a VHS tape that's just lost on disc. You know what I'm saying? So, that's a really, really great pull. But yeah, Eric, I mean, I like you said, a lot of people that listen to this show and a lot of guests that we've had on will be happy that that Ray is leaning towards Disney World over Universal. I don't know.
Yeah, and I mean, Disney in general. I mean, I think there's a lot of magic to be had there, which is just something that I think sticks with all of us. Is there a particular Disney property that like you tend to lean towards more than others? And then I'll kind of expand that to anywhere in pop culture, like anything that you're obsessed about in general that gives you a similar type of Disney magic feel. I know for Phil, that's probably Jurassic Park. For me, especially at an early age, was Star Wars. I mean, we'd watch the movies, watch them again, listen to the soundtracks, and just start getting into it. So what is that like? Do you have maybe a Mount Rushmore or king of the mountain for your Disney stuff that you enjoy? And then just expanding it out to pop culture, what else gives you that Disney magic?
Personally, when I was a little kid, I think even to this day, I recently rewatched it because I was trying to study it. So it was I think Pinocchio is an unmatched film. I think it is sound across the board because it has 3-act structures. It has 3 villains that keep incrementing. I broke this down and digested this movie and dissected it as best I could. I was trying to replicate it. And I think just the level of creativity that these kinds of things had, the fact that they drew every single thing by hand is insane to me. But other than that, I know all the Pixar stuff is classic to me. I would argue that The Incredibles, the first one, absolute masterpiece. I've tried to dissect and prod this project as best as possible. And even like you said, the Star Wars movies, the original trilogy, absolute classic, undeniable. I can't see any flaws in it. But I think it's just crazy to see how these things, even though they were just made by, George Lucas and his buddies out in the desert filming some little miniatures, it became this global phenomenon, right? It's just crazy to me how these things, they're just dreamt of, right? They're just drawings on a page. They're just an idea. And then from there, they bloom into something that, sparks the imagination of everyone worldwide. For me, recently, I've started, I guess, going back to the Mount Rushmore concept. I think Jack Kirby is probably one of the greatest artists of in history of comics. It's insane how he's literally started all the way from the Golden Age, literally created Captain America during the start of the war. Before we even went to war, he's punching Hitler on the cover. Crazy. That's like a statement. If I were to do that today, I'd get canceled, man. And I think it's just crazy how he completely went and never lost his job throughout the whole time. He went to war, came back, made a whole bunch of characters, made the Avengers, made all of these guys. I'm pretty sure he was the penciler for the Spider-Man Amazing Cover Fantasy, like that original iconic image. That's wild to me, right? So him, Steve Ditko, all these guys, amazing. But specifically, I really got gravitated towards the Mighty Thor. I thought Thor was just whatever, some boring character. I read the original Silver Age stuff and I was completely blown away. All the tales from Asgard, this insane mythos and how it expands. The world is beginning and it's crumbling and it's ending and these gods are fighting. Absolutely captivated by that and how he kept going. Even though he left Marvel, he quit Marvel. He went to DC and kept building that exact same story through the fourth world. He created Darkseid, he created Orion, all the Mr. Miracle and all that stuff. It's crazy the kind of legacy he had. He didn't stop creating till he was late in his life, and he went to self-publishing and stuff. That's a huge inspiration. Like all of these people that I just mentioned too, they all like had their characters stolen from them, or they didn't receive the proper credit, right? Disney lost Oswald the Rabbit and stuff. And it's just, these are all like cautionary tales, right? Like all of these things that we read about and we don't realize, like, man, someone had to really sit down for hours to make this thing happen. And it's just fascinating how, ultimately in the end of their career, they realized the only route to go is self-publishing. And especially now in the modern age, with all this AI slop in the way, once real art comes back, and once we notice, like, oh, this is where the real stuff is. I'm pretty sure, Phil, you were saying that it was you prefer like the physical media aspect, like the VHS. Physical media is not going anywhere. I think there's always going to be that niche fan base that just loves it. Especially, I mean, I make books, right? I can't like, oh no, we could only scroll down. That's not the same as sniffing the pages of an old book. Classic. It's timeless. So I mean, it's just really exciting to be able to go back to all this stuff that I never even knew existed, and just finding all these like just wells of imagination, and just using that as inspiration to bring into my stuff as well.
Timeless is the right word to use with a lot of this when we're talking about Jack Kirby, when we're talking about physical media. Like, Phil, a little different, but on the physical side of things, like 2026 ripping Pokemon packs, still hotter than ever, right? Like people fiend for that type of stuff. And Ray, I mean, people have been enjoying timeless stories since the beginning of time. If I read correctly, you're a bit of a ancient Greek mythology fan. Like, we excited for the Odyssey this year? Is that on your radar? Are you day one there?
Yeah, man. That's hopefully they do a great job. The Troy movie with Brad Pitt, it was all right. It was cool. I think it was pretty awesome. But the actual, to read and learn and research the actual story and the book, oh my God. I don't know why the heck they didn't teach us this when I was in school. They completely gave us all the terrible garbage of like, oh, here we go. This little lady has a problem and you shouldn't do this, whatever. I wanted to hear about these wars, right? The rage of Achilles, or Odysseus versus the Cyclops. Like, this is crazy. How come I never knew any of this stuff? So I'm going back even further beyond comics and just seeing where storytelling really came from. I'm a huge dork when it comes to this stuff, man. I honestly, bro, my best of friends are probably these characters, man. And I think, like, because these things, even though they're just words on page, these characters are symbols that reflect ourselves, right? They're all like cautionary tales. They're all stories to learn from. For example, in Odysseus, hopefully they get this right. He's supposed to be the representation of us going through our lives. He finishes the Trojan War and all the crazy stuff that happened, and the war is not over. The war is him now having to cross the sea, fight these monsters, fight his temptations, go and try to get back home. That is what we're always trying to do, right? That is what nostalgia really is. We're trying to find our home, our center, right? We're trying to find that peace. At the center of his house is literally a tree, and that is how his wife knows that is him, right? Because only he was able to build it. Stuff like that. It's all symbolism. It's all iconography. But I love reading all this stuff, like the Iliad, the Odyssey. But I really, really fell in love with Dante's Divine Comedy and Milton's Paradise Lost. These are like cosmic stories. This is Jack Kirby's Silver Surfer falling from heaven, right? This is Galactus coming from the depths of the underworld to consume the world. Like, these are insane stories, and it seems kind of ridiculous, like, oh, what does this have to do with comics? I'm taking my characters on these journeys. I don't know what, Superman's gonna go walk the dog. All right, cool. I'm taking my characters to the underworld. They're gonna go fight demons. They're gonna go and crawl and suffer. They don't have any superpowers. They're going up against the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. My characters are not heroic. They're flawed like us. I'm trying to make people that are relatable. I want someone to see them and see themselves and realize that, hey, no matter what, being a hero is a choice. It is not like, oh, you have to be destined. It's not these prophecies. It is a subject of our surroundings. It is whether or not we're able to rise up to the action if it presents itself, right? And my character, Oscar, he's this bearded dude who loves comics. And I imagine myself, when I was a little kid, going through my midlife crisis. So Oscar is just this guy just going down bad right now. And he just quits his job and he goes into this life of adventure. And he's never been happier. His face is all beat up and bruised. And that is when he is his most happy. Not when he's comfortable and sitting at his office job. I worked in insurance. I'm too antsy for that stuff, man. I'm too obsessed. I'm thinking about characters 24/7. So for me to just sit there and try to finesse these people over the phone, like, hey, you really need this, I don't care about that. I want to give people stuff that really matters to me and probably matters to the world a little bit. I think that stories are more than just entertainment or more than just decorations. I think that they are really the core of language, right? The way that birds sing, the way that dogs bark. I think humans communicate through stories, right? Sentences and words. Since before they were even written, it was always the thing that gathered us and taught us, you know? So, I mean, yeah, dude, I'm a huge dork if it wasn't evident about it. Yeah.
No, listen, you came to the right place. You came to the right place. Phil, I don't know how I'm going to make this correlation, but I'm going to try from, the Odyssey to the cosmic stories that Ray was talking about. I'll do something topical from last year, like bringing it to K-pop Demon Hunters. Like, it's one of those things. Like, I think the reasons a property like that really stood out to people, it wasn't the most amazing or unique or original story per se, but it had all of the little elements from the culture to the fantastic animation to just the representation on display. There were so many different elements on top of good storytelling, on top of good character building, that really just made that movie take off. And there's just so many different properties, so many different things in pop culture, Phil, that I know we've really enjoyed that kind of fit the bill with all these descriptions.
I think people are just really, I think it's underestimated how much people really enjoy folklore wherever it may come from. So of course, when we're talking about the Odyssey, Ray, you mentioned God of War a little bit earlier, like we're getting, they're remastering the original 3 games. We're getting a TV show. I think people are really underestimating how like into those types of things people are from all over the world. I was recently cast in a ongoing audio drama about folklore when it comes to each different states within the United States. Like, there are some people love the weird and like unexplained, and I think that's why so many of those things are so alive and well. So I really have, we'll of course be seated for day 1 of the Odyssey. Eric, it just pains us that we don't have a proper IMAX theater here. We have one, but it's just like the seats are from there are things that we do want to go back. We talked about throwing it back to VHS tapes. I don't want to sit in a movie theater seat from 1995 in the big 2026. So AMC, I will be an A-lister. I will pay the rising prices if you just fix up our IMAX theater a little bit. But that's a little rant that I had to go on. So, but Ray, actually, I just mentioned it. I do want to ask you, do you have any thoughts? Have you been following at all the God of War live action series? What kind of expectations do you have for it? Have you played all 5 games as well? Talk a little bit about the God of War series, because Eric and I are big fans of that, even though I myself struggle with the combat a little bit, but still, great storytelling, great game.
Yeah, man, just to kind of piggyback off of what you guys were both saying, I think the modern times, like right now, we're all just kind of longing for modern folklores. We're longing for modern stories that kind of are just also cool. Not everything has to be all deep and profound. It could also just be really entertaining, and it gravitates. I love that now video games are really being like something that's taken seriously in movies, because for a while, everything was like a curse. If it was a video game movie, it was always a flop, this and that. I think that now with like the Super Mario Bros, with the Sonic stuff, with I guess even Street Fighters coming out, the God of War stuff, I mean, it looks, the internet reacted the way they did. Everyone thinks it looks kind of dingy, whatever. But look, hopefully it's treated with the respect it deserves, because Kratos...
Agreed. Yeah, just remember, Amazon chose to put that picture out. So
right.
They really just had to get roasted, I think. And they need to learn a lesson.
Yeah, man. Hey, they got some attention from it at least, So hopefully, I know I'm going to see what's up with once it comes out, And I think it's just fascinating because these characters, like Kratos is a super insane character. Honestly, it's almost like crazy to think that they're even gonna adapt it into a movie, because whatever the heck they make is going to immediately pale in comparison to the guy literally killing these giants, climbing a mountain barehanded. Like, I grew up watching all my older cousins. I wasn't allowed to play this stuff because it was violent as heck. There would be blood, gore, there'd be everything, man. So I was always just fascinated by it, especially because it had that Greek mythology kind of stuff, and it would reinvent it in its own fresh way. Hopefully it's good, man. Hopefully it's it pays homage to all of the great stuff that it's made, all the legacy that it has already. And honestly, as long as Kratos is badass, that's all that we really need. Like, the rest doesn't really matter. We just really want
You gotta get some good
really
kills,
cool
some good gore.
Exactly.
They gotta get that right. The voice, I think, also has to be correct as well. So that's gonna be.
Yeah.
We'll see how that goes.
Yeah, I mean, they did make a pretty big adjustment in storytelling and all of that just from the first 3 games to the last 2, and that big kind of gap in between. So I think you're right on the money about where video games currently stand and the way that adaptations are treated as well. I think there's a little bit more respect for that, where like the Mario, the Sonic movies, like those are fun for kids, and it also has the nostalgia for adults. But then there are some of these other stories that now get a little bit more respect, where you can still have a Street Fighter and have fun with that property, but maybe we can get a God of War, or like we recently got The Last of Us, whatever you may think of the second season. We got The Last of Us, and we had a little bit more serious storytelling, and they were able to tell that story in a little bit of a different light. That was at least positively received, where it wasn't exactly like the game, but it had everything that I think the core of the game, at least in the first season, definitely had. So that's a really good call out there, Ray. And adaptations in general are kind of happening all the time. So maybe wrapping up with our last topic, like obviously in the comic world, we kind of reference, how comic book movies have taken over. We always love a chance to see where everybody's mindset is these days with big properties. The MCU is not what it once was. I think we all can acknowledge that. Doomsday is around the corner. Where has your journey been with Marvel and DC, and where do you land right now? Like, have you strayed away from the movies? Have you gravitated towards them? And then now, with this big shift between the two, where do you stand today as well?
I mean, yeah, they definitely pale in comparison to what they were, especially during Infinity War and Endgame was at its peak, right? I remember me and all my buddies in high school, we were watching it, everyone was cheering, and it was like we were watching the freaking Super Bowl or something. But it was just amazing to be a part of that while it was happening. I feel like it's something that we can't even describe to someone else unless you were there to witness it, you know what I mean? And yeah, it was just, like a decades long movie hype. Now I feel like the hype's kind of dead. Now they're just kind of trying to revive whatever glory days they used to have, bring back all the actors we said weren't going to come back, all that stuff. I think it might be kind of interesting because it's going to be, I think it's going to be like Professor X's, I forgot the actor's name, the bald old dude. That's going to be his last role. It's going to be like Magneto's last role and all that stuff. Like these people are super old now, you know what I mean? Even Robert Downey Jr., like Iron Man's super old now too, bro. So I mean, everyone's just kind of aging. I think they're all gonna be dads now. It's like, I don't even think they know what they're gonna do with this movie. But I mean, hopefully they treat it with respect, right? The Spider-Man movie's coming out as well recently. I mean, I grew up with the Tobey Maguire trilogy, and to me, I always wanted that 4th movie. I feel like that would have been a good way to really wrap it up. They're getting the 4th movie now. I don't know if this is gonna be more Spider-Man stuff, more multiverse stuff. Who knows? We don't really know what they have in mind, right? Some of the TV shows are good. Stuff like Wonder Man, I kind of appreciate. I like that they're bringing all the Daredevil stuff back. Like all the actors are coming back. I feel like 2026, it feels like everything old is coming back new again, right? Like everything's just getting refreshed. It's getting a restart. And thank God it's not like, a couple years ago where everything was just being regurgitated, like another the exact same Snow White but live action, or this and that, everything Disney live action. They kind of just ham-fisted it, but now I feel like they're kind of letting it grow and just see where the story takes them. And yeah, I don't really know. I have trust in the Russo brothers and stuff like that, but I really have no clue what's gonna happen. If it's gonna be Iron Man versus Doctor Doom, if it's just two Robert Downeys fighting on the screen, who knows what we're gonna get, honestly. But I don't know. I think that now is the perfect time to really just make something that stands out, and that's why I'm really just trying to make something that breaks the mold. Because some of these characters, if you really look back, like Batman is it's 17,000 adaptation. Spider-Man, again, this is the 12th movie. You know what I mean? Like, we need, these characters are 80 years old. We need something brand new, something that's completely different, and hopefully in not so far future, I'm able to kind of break that a little bit and just breathe life into the culture. But I'm a huge fan at the end of the day. This is not out of like, oh, disrespect, this and that, I'm better. No, I absolutely adore all of these things. Everything that Stan Lee has built with Jack Kirby and Steve Ditko and all these great writers and creators. Massive respect to all of them. This is what they've done is insane. Because the Avengers were B-listers, C-listers originally, and they made them the front cover of everything superheroes. And yeah, man, I was even able to meet Jim Starlin right as Infinity War dropped when I was like in high school. It was kind of crazy. Like the hype surrounding it, the world felt like it was alive. And hopefully we're able to get that kind of, culture, zeitgeist, whatever it may be again. Everyone's going to be there in theaters for the Doomsday stuff. And there's no doubt about it, right? The hype's still alive, low key. So, I mean, we'll see where they take us, man.
That's a great outlook. I feel like I'm more pessimistic just because like everything seems so like cash grabby. It just feels like how many times are they going to retire Ian McKellen and Patrick Stewart? How many times are they going to retire those two people in those roles? Robert Downey Jr. getting up there, like you said. I think they did mention he might not be an Iron Man variant, which makes zero sense now. So, like, I genuinely have no idea where we're going to go. I'm excited for it. I will be watching Doom Part 3 first, unfortunately, on the Doomsday docket, but I will be watching both, and I'll be seated at least one more time on opening weekend. I think as well, you mentioned Spider-Man. They really did have their opportunity after No Way Home to just give us 3 separate Spider-Man properties and we would have paid the money. So I think it's just really funny that they've dropped the ball there. But, they are in a weird state just in general with comic book movies. DC's doing their own thing, moving in hopefully an upwards trajectory. I think a lot of people would agree. But, I think people are itching for a lot of original stories. And Phil, that's why I'm really glad as we're kind of wrapping up this episode, that we were able to bring on somebody with an original vision for their storytelling. And hopefully, again, people are willing to check that out and really see what there is to offer here, because I think they might be surprised. And Ray, it was a real great pleasure. But Phil, again, really excited that we were able to kind of circle back to that.
Yeah, Ray, thank you so much for sharing your vision, your passion, your process with us. And, like we said, these episodes offer so much. So thank you for sharing all that with our audience. And we hope to link up with you and our buddy Nick in the future at some convention down the road here in Florida. So as we wrap up, please let everybody know where they can find your work, any upcoming convention appearances you may have, anything like that, so our audience can keep up with you and your journey going forward.
Yeah, man, it's been an absolute honor to be on this show. It really means the world to me that you guys put me on. And it's just, yeah, you guys can find me at Ray Reynet everywhere. Farlookstudios.com on my website has everything that I have to offer. You can search up Junket, Hidden Worlds Revealed, out now on Amazon. I currently have 5 books printed. They're all around 60 pages each, so they're all self-contained. I'm bringing you guys the new MCU, the new DCU right here in only a couple pages. And I think everyone should always pursue their dreams. Just keep going, keep making it, because at the end of the day, that's all we can do, Just a little bit of hope makes a lot of a difference. So upwards and onwards. Thank you, guys.
Absolutely, and everything you need to keep up with Ray will be in the show notes of this episode, which is also where you can find everything you need, wait for it, podcast related. Make sure you click the Linktree link in the show notes as well. Follow us on social media over on Instagram and TikTok. Join our growing Discord community. Follow us on Twitch, where we stream each and every other week. And if you are on YouTube, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. If you are listening on your favorite podcast platform, please make sure to give us 5 stars, one of the best ways you can support the show. And of course, make make sure to follow not only Ray, but also Eric and I as we navigate our content creation and voice acting journeys. We appreciate all the support that you guys have given us so far. But if you find yourself wanting to get a little bit more from the Wait For It podcast, maybe getting episodes a little bit early or having a hand in the content that we put out, Eric will let you know a little bit more about that before wrapping us up for the night.
Yeah, so all the free stuff Phil mentioned, very much appreciated. If you want to go the extra step and support us every month on Patreon, you're able to get behind the scenes and early access to episodes like this one, in addition to partaking in Patreon month, where patrons of the show like Briar, T3 Kato, Vintage, Corey from The World Is My Burrito, Nick Casbaro, the author of the Vitalarium series, and Botter from the Shortbox podcast are suggesting movies and even games for us to watch and or play. We'd love to have you on board. If you're not able to, that's okay. All the free stuff Phil mentioned goes a long way in a form of support. And with that being said, my name is Mr. Eric Almighty. That is my co-host, Phil the Filipino. And shout out to our guest, Ray. Thank you so much for coming on. Please keep in mind we release new episodes every Wednesday on the podcast. And all you got to do is wait for it.
This is the Wait For It podcast.